expanding that child tax credit, or you mentioned housing before, giving that extra money for a first home, if you can't raise corporate taxes, or if GOP takes control of the Senate, where do you get the money to do that? Do you still go forward with those plans and borrow?
Well, but we're going to have to raise corporate taxes, and we're going to have to make sure that the biggest corporations and billionaires pay their fair share. That's just it. It's about paying their fair share.
This campaign is looking more and more like the Hindenburg with every passing day. And wait until you see how Joe Biden just threw Kamala under the bus on The View. This is going to absolutely make your day. It's just another day in Kamala's imploding campaign. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve. You're a Patriot Professor here to help you stay sane in these insane times. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Before we dive in right here, I do want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, and that's the makers of Liver Health Formula. Now, if you're one of the 100 million Americans struggling with all the weight gain and the loss of energy that comes with a fatty liver, this is an absolutely awesome solution. Liver Health Formula is an all-natural supplement. It contains 12 clinically proven botanicals that help recharge and protect your liver. It's manufactured right here in the USA and approved by independent American doctors. And this is so cool. If you click on that link below right now, you can actually try Liver Health Formula and receive a free bottle of blood sugar formula when you order today. So don't let a fatty liver keep you sluggish and inactive, gang. You know, those who've been with this channel for a while, you know this is personal for me. I recently lost 60 pounds, and I could say it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. And now it is your turn. Click on that link below or go to getliverhelp.com/Turley. Claim your free bonus gift. That's getliverhelp.com/Turley. As you know, the Kamala campaign's attempt at running out the clock, doing their best to hide Kamala from the voters in a manner comparable to the way they hid Biden in the White House, hoping that the legacy media would actively campaign for her as they did for Biden when he was hiding in his basement back in 2020. His basement's just 20 minutes away from where I am right now. Kamala's people thought that would be enough for her to squeak by with a win. It's not working. Her polls are imploding, and it's forcing her to have to crawl out from under her rock and give interviews. And now we know why her campaign staff is doing their very best to hide her in every possible way. Yesterday, Kamala sat down for the mother of all softball interviews. I mean, this was a T-ball interview with Stephanie Ruhle of MSNBC. Now, if you don't know who Ruhle is, just before the interview, here's what she said on the Bill Maher show about Kamala refusing to give an account of herself to the American people.
It's not too much to ask Kamala, say, are you for a Palestinian state if Hamas is going to run that state?
Okay.
Yes or no?
And let's say you don't like her answer. Are you going to vote for Donald Trump?
No, I'm not.
Kamala
I just said I'm not going to vote for her.
She's not running for perfect. She's running against Trump. We have two choices. And so there are some things you might not know her answer to. And in 2024, unlike 2016 for a lot of the American people, we know exactly what Trump will do, who he is, and the kind of threat he is to democracy.
I don't know.
So it's unclear to me how there could be
Stephanie, the problem that a lot of people have with Kamala is we don't know her answer to anything, okay?
But you know his answer to everything.
And that's why I would never vote for him, and people shouldn't vote for him. But people also are expected to have some idea of what the program is of the person you're supposed to vote for. You're just not supposed to say, well, you have to vote for Y because X is this, that, and the other. Let's find out a little bit more. And I don't think it's a lot to ask her to sit down for a real interview as opposed to a puff piece in which she describes like her feelings of growing up in Oakland with nice lawns.
Then I would just say to that, when you move to Nirvana, give me your real estate broker's number and I'll be your next door neighbor. We don't live there.
So that's Stephanie Ruhle employing a rhetorical technique known as stigmatization, meaning that I don't have to give an account for myself as long as I focus on how bad you are. As long as I'm successfully showing how you are the devil, as long as I continue to successfully discredit you by labeling you a Nazi or a fascist or a threat to democracy, the second coming of Hitler, I'm absolved from giving any credible account for myself. And to insist that I have to is falsely believing that we live in a nirvana. Now, ironically, normally this Stephanie Ruhle, being a faithful woke liberal, normally she would denounce stigmatization, given how effectively it's been used over the years against the very people groups that she wants rescued from the periphery of society. But of course, this is simply because wokeness isn't about removing social stigmas. It's about fundamentally reordering stigmas. It's about stigmatizing those who have historically stigmatized in the past. Like, you white male Christians. You're all now the legitimate objects of stigmatization. And as long as you're on the side of pointing fingers and witch hunting from the vantage point of the left, you're okay. You don't need to give an account for yourself. It's one of the privileges, one of the woke privileges of being on the left. Just one problem. All of that stigmatization is not working. This program of stigmatization, the stigmatization strategy against Trump isn't working. Kamala's polls are plummeting. So the irony here is that she's agreeing, she's being forced to come out and do interviews. And the irony here is that she agreed to another sit-down interview. All of them have been disastrous in the past, but she agreed to go ahead and do one with the very person that just days ago, the person you just witnessed there, who argued that Kamala doesn't have to do it. She doesn't have to give interviews. She doesn't have to account for her policies precisely because of who Trump is. So that's what happened. That's the backdrop. And here's how the interview started.
Madam Vice President, you just laid out your economic vision for the future.
Yeah.
But still, there are lots of Americans who don't see themselves in your plans. For those who say these policies aren't for me, what do you say to them?
Well, if you are hardworking, if you have the dreams and the ambitions and the aspirations of what I believe you do, you're in my plan. I have to tell you, I really love and am so energized by what I know to be the spirit and character of the American people. We have ambition. We have aspirations. We have dreams. We can see what's possible. We have an incredible work ethic.
In other words, I'm just not going to answer your question. I'm going to do what I do, but this is the unbreakable pattern of Kamala Harris. She just simply refuses to answer any direct question directly. Well, if you're hardworking, if you have dreams and ambitions and the aspirations of what I believe you do, you're in my plan. Here's Kamala taking her new word salads to a whole new holistic level.
And assistance to state and local governments around transit dollars. And looking holistically at the connection between that and housing. And looking holistically at the incentives we in the federal government can create for local and state governments to actually engage in planning in a holistic manner that includes prioritizing affordable housing.
Holistically. Kamala Holistic Harris. Now, astonishingly, Ruhle in the post-mortem of that debate, and it only went downhill from there, she admitted that Harris simply didn't answer her questions. Take a look.
She doesn't answer the question around if the GOP is controlling the Senate, if she can't raise corporate taxes, where is she going to get the money from? To expand the child tax credit and do all the things she wants to do. And she says, we just have to do it. And that's great, and that's a campaign promise. But the issue is, if it means we're just going to borrow again, then what we're doing is we're just never addressing the deficit. And back in the days when you were a proud Republican, debts and deficits mattered.
And that's great. And that's great. She threw out a slogan at me, a campaign slogan, a meaningless, purposeless slogan, and that's great. What the freaking hell does she mean? How is a meaningless, manipulative campaign slogan great? Well, she gave us the answer.
Work, and one could watch that and say, well, she didn't give a clear, direct answer. That's okay, because we are not talking about clear or direct issues.
So first, Kamala doesn't have to explain herself because Trump is Satan. And now when asked to explain herself and she doesn't offer clear and direct answers, that's okay because we're not dealing with clear and direct issues. That's your legacy media. What she just said there, what she just did there over these last several days, that in a nutshell is your propaganda press. Trump is such an existential threat to the world that they can descend into absurdity and it's okay. But the joke's on them. Because in the end, the most absurd thing in all of this is to assume that descending into absurdity is going to convince anyone. Look at this. If you want to see how bad things really are for Kamala, take a look at the latest poll coming out of Notre Dame University. This is a poll of the students at an admittedly more conservative college, Catholic college. It's more conservative than you would find on most campuses. And as you can see, Trump is beating Harris. He's leading her 48-46. Now, the reason why this is so suggestive of the current state of the race is that the same poll taken back in 2020 on the campus of Notre Dame found Trump getting crushed by Biden. Biden led him at the same time in the 2020 race, 66-29 among the student body at Notre Dame. What we're witnessing now is a massive, massive swing to Trump. We're talking a 20-point swing. It's a monumental shift, and it's indicative of the pattern that we're seeing in all of the polls. We've been saying this for weeks now, gang. When all is said and done, it just doesn't matter what poll you're looking at. It doesn't matter if it's a national poll or a state poll. It doesn't matter if it's a puff poll, based on response bias, or if it's an actual responsible poll. They're all showing the same thing. Trump is consistently polling stronger than he's ever polled, either in 2016 or 2020. And the Democrat is consistently polling weaker than ever against him. Take, for example, the latest CBS poll that just came out a couple of days back. It's got Harris up by 4 nationally. But they're polling around the same time in late September 2020 had Biden up by 10. Now, of course, they were off by nearly 6, so they overestimated the Democrat support significantly. And interestingly, if that's the case, if they did the same thing with their latest poll, the results would actually then be the same as the latest Atlas Intel national poll, which has Trump up nationally by 3. And Atlas Intel, if you don't know, was the closest to nailing the margin back in 2020 of all pollsters. But that's the pattern we're seeing in every single poll. Quinnipiac just came out the other day. Quinnipiac, they have Trump up by 1. Quinnipiac's as far left of a poll, as far left skewing of a poll that you can get, and Trump is up by 1. On the last week of September in 2020, gang, they had Biden up by freaking 10. CNN, they have Kamala up nationally by 1. On October 1st of 2020, CNN had Biden up by freaking 16. New York Times, CNN has Trump leading Harris in all 3 Sunbelt states, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, they had Biden up 8 nationally at the same time in 2020. CNN is showing Trump's retrospective approval rating above 50%. Voters think by above 50% that Trump's presidency was a success, while Biden's approval rating, his current approval rating, is in the mid-30s. Every single poll shows that voters trust Trump far more with the economy, with jobs, with inflation than Harris. And she simply hasn't made the case for how she would be substantially different from the administration that's experiencing presently such low approval ratings. And by the way, somebody appears to recognize that. Take a look.
And as vice president, there wasn't a single thing that I did that she couldn't do. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to delegate her responsibility on everything from foreign policy to domestic policy.
Yeah, you just heard that. You just heard old Sly Joe himself, old Scranton Joe, tar and feather Kamala with his record. And he had the ladies at the View yucking it up with the good. Yeah, really. That's right, folks. That's right. I delegated every one of my policies to her. She's responsible for every single policy of mine that you hate. He literally said that. So as borderline illiterates like Stephanie Rule over at MSNBC are making the absurd claim that Kamala doesn't have to distance herself from Biden because Trump is so bad, Biden himself is out there associating her more and more explicitly with his radically unpopular policies. Do you see how they perpetuate their own demise? Their rhetorical stigmatization isn't working, just like their lawfare didn't work. The more they indicted Trump and prosecuted him, the more his polls went up. And it seems we're seeing something very similar here. The more they stigmatize him, the stronger he gets. At the very least, because such stigmatization distracts them from distancing Kamala from Biden. All the while, Biden associates her more and more with his own failed and unpopular policies. Just another day in an objectively imploding campaign.